Billionaire Romance Audiobooks. Subscribe today and join the family. Exclusive access to the hottest Billionaire Romance Audiobooks. Subscribe to the Billionaire Romance Audiobooks YouTube channel today and be the first to know about our latest releases. We're constantly adding new titles to our library, so you're sure to find something you love. Never miss a new release. When you subscribe, you'll also get notified when we release new videos. So you can always be up to date on the latest and greatest Billionaire Romance Audiobooks. Join the Billionaire Romance Audiobooks family. We love hearing from our listeners. If you have any suggestions for future audiobooks or just want to say hi, leave a comment below. We're always happy to hear from you. Subscribe today and join the Billionaire Romance Audiobooks family.
Tragic Secrets. A Secret Baby Cowboy Romance Audiobook. Book 2 in the Island of Love series. By Michelle Love. Audio copyright 2023, BFA Publishing. Note: we edited this romance audiobook to comply with the YouTube content guidelines. If you want to listen to the full-length, non-edited version, you can grab a copy from Google Play Books or Kobo.
Blurb. When the prettiest young widow in the world comes walking into my life with her adorable daughter, I fall pretty damn fast. I've put my career first for most of my life, and now that I'm past 40, I'm starting to wonder if it's time to think about all the things I sacrificed. Like having a family. Having a sweet face to wake up to in the morning, and loving arms to fall into at night. Lorena might be the right person to fix all of that for me. Winning her over will take some work. She has a baby daughter to protect, along with her broken heart. But that's not the complication I'm worried about. My expert gold digger Andrea Case is inserting herself into my family's Christmas celebration, manipulating my mother into ensuring she can stay. Is she going to ruin Christmas? Or can I find a way to save it for all of us?
Chapter 1. Lorena.
$20 has never made me feel so happy. It's December 23rd, and finally, after months of scrambling to keep the heat on and have food in the fridge, I have $20 left over to buy my baby daughter, Cindy, a Christmas present. It hurts to be this grateful for something so small, especially when Christmas dinner will be a cheap takeout pizza, but it's still a relief, something I haven't felt in months. So when I walk out of the front door with my 2-year-old nestled in my arms, a thick wool blanket wrapped around us both to make up for our inadequate jackets, I'm distracted enough by our good fortune that I don't notice the mistletoe at first. Phoenicia is one of those tiny little towns in upstate New York that survives on being pretty, having touristy shops and venues, and having the only late-night gas station for several miles. It has a bed and breakfast, a theater, a 50s-style diner, boutiques, an old German butcher, and a whole lot of drafty old Victorians. One of those drafty Victorians was left to me in my aunt's will, so Cindy and I moved here from Long Island after my husband, Manny, died. Getting the house was a bittersweet, survival-level stroke of luck, but a big one, with Manny's benefits tangled up in red tape for over 2 years. I wouldn't be so scared if it was just me, but I have our daughter to worry about too, to keep warm, sheltered, and fed. I swore on Manny's grave that I'd do my best job. Cindy is the one steady light in my life, and as usual my focus is on her more than anything else as we walk along the sidewalk, up until everything starts going weird around us. I smell the fresh scent of cut mistletoe first, that slightly astringent smell mixed with the slightly piney perfume of the berries. I'm used to catching whiffs of it all through the Christmas season, but as I draw near the main street, the wind picks up and blows the overpowering smell of the plant into my face. I stop, eyes watering from the wind, and look around in confusion. The smell is so intense that it's almost like someone's burning a pile of the stuff. I look around and see no fire, but abruptly notice the sheer quantity of the stuff. Mistletoe is hanging everywhere, all over town. Every doorway, the corners of every house and awning, the arching light displays running over the streets, the lampposts, everywhere that a sprig of mistletoe can hang, at least one dangles, hung by a red ribbon. I start moving slowly toward the closest one, not entirely sure what I'm seeing. Mommy, what's the smelly green stuff? Cindy is immediately fascinated, but I gently steer her out of grabbing distance of the sprigs. The stuff is poisonous, but the berries smell nice. Bad combination around a tiny kid. It's mistletoe, honey. People kiss under it. See? I point to an elderly couple smooching while a couple of millennial girls take their picture, looking charmed. The couple is pretty cute. I wonder how many decades of marriage they have under their belt, and then I remember Manny and look away, my heart stinging. Ooh. Is it magic? Cindy sounds excited. Magic is her thing. Her favorite stories are fairy tales, even the creepy ones. I don't know, I reply honestly. I'm that way about everything: magic, prayer, Santa, karma. I've always believed that any kind of religious opinion or paranormal belief should be sorted out by individuals and not fed to them by their parents. I also never want Cindy thinking that I know everything, or that I never make mistakes. No pedestal for me means less chance of disappointing her later, a consideration I wish my parents had given me. Not that I would ever leave my daughter to drag me to bed at night because mommy and daddy had too much happy juice, but still. It's the middle of the day, 2 days before Christmas, and of course the streets are jammed with last-minute shoppers. There's a toy store 2 blocks down that has plushy snowshoe hares. That's what Cindy wants, a snow bunny. $15 plus tax, and enough change left over for a bag of Christmas candy. Unfortunately, I'll have to push through this gawking crowd to get to our destination. It's not going to be easy, because like me, they're shocked by the sudden appearance of all this greenery. And that means they're mostly standing around blocking my way. They're either standing around talking about the mistletoe, or bustling around trying to clear it from their properties, sweeping small piles of mistletoe into the gutters, and yes, some of them are standing around kissing under it. It's very cute and kind of ridiculous, and I wonder how many people had to get together early this morning to pull this prank. Not to mention who they were. There's a man leaning against a lamppost on the corner as I cross the street. It takes me a moment to recognize him as Jack Whitman, a local billionaire's son and world-class skier. He's beautiful, with his pale face and coal black hair, those bright blue eyes and that deep blue overcoat. He gives me a smile and a wink as I walk past, and I blush slightly while Cindy waves at him. I wonder what he's doing out watching all this. Is he involved? Is he behind this, maybe? He certainly does seem to be gloating a little. I glance back at him and see that he's wiggling his fingers back at Cindy, his eyes dancing with mischief and good humor. No way of knowing. The Whitmans, just the father and his adult son as far as I know, live in a giant old house far up the mountainside and venture down to see us once every week or so. The local rich eccentrics, they are known for their grand gestures around the holidays, such as the massive food donations to the local church that I hope Dr. Whitman will make again. Last time netted each of us enough frozen and canned food to see every poor person in and around Phoenicia through to mid-January. The elder Whitman is his son's opposite in looks, aside from them both being tall and blue-eyed. Dr. Whitman's complexion is ruddy, his features are generous. He wears a full white beard and mustache, and he always wears a cap over his bald spot, with silver hair flowing from beneath it. Nobody knows why the pair picked a tiny sleepy town like Phoenicia to settle in, but the kids love them, and they never seem to do any harm. If the mistletoe prank is their doing though, this latest grand gesture is beyond bizarre. I'm cold, Mommy. Can we stop for a cocoa? The chirpy little voice at my ear drags me back to earth. Cindy's getting big, I'm strong, but my arm is starting to ache. Still, we only have the one wool blanket to use as a shawl, and I can't wrap it around us both if she walks beside me. I do a quick bit of poverty math in my mind. A big cup of cocoa with whipped cream and sprinkles for each of us at the candy shop will mean temporary relief from the cold, but no Christmas candy. But I do have baking chocolate, sugar, vanilla, and milk at home. Can you hold out until after we get your bunny and go home? If you can wait that long, you can have 2 mugs of chocolate. Made from scratch, each mug costs maybe 40 cents a piece. I hate having to bargain with my baby daughter over tiny things, but I have no choice. Not even at Christmas. That's just how it is. She'll get 2 gifts from the toy drive that she won't get to pick: Christmas cookies because I bake them, a $5 pizza, 1 bag of chocolate drops in bright foil for her stocking, and her snow bunny. And then I'll be broke again until my next check, and praying that the Whitmans give us another break. She lifts her head to peer at me, her dark eyes thoughtful in her round little face. She has her father's looks, and his way of drawing her little brows together as she thinks something over. "All right, Mommy," she says very solemnly and snuggles closer to me. "But hurry up." I'll do my best. The sidewalks are slippery from all the slush from a recent snowfall. The shopkeepers try to sweep the worst of it back into the gutters, but I can feel my worn boot treads slide slightly every few steps. I take deep breaths and fight a surge of panic every time I slip more than half an inch, praying we won't go down in this crowd of shoppers and gawkers. We're half a block from the toy store when I see a man step out of the tobacco shop 2 doors down and stop dead for a moment, my eyes widening. It's him, James Norris. Former leading man, billionaire media mogul, and the only man associated with Phoenicia who could give the mysterious Whitmans a run for their money in terms of wealth and success. I've heard before that he sometimes visits town, but I've never seen him myself. I've had a crush on him since I hit puberty. Now in his 40s, he's every bit as attractive as he was back when I fell asleep next to open magazines filled with pictures of his tanned and smiling face. His thick brown hair sweeps back from a high forehead, his features are rugged and his mouth generous. His smile is like a flash of light, making his golden hazel eyes twinkle. Only the slight crow's feet at the corners of his eyes give him away as being over 30. He's dressed down today in jeans, snow boots, and a thick Irish sweater in storm cloud gray. He rocks on his heels as he checks his phone, seemingly oblivious to the gigantic bundle of mistletoe he's just stopped under. We're headed straight for him. Oh gosh. For a split second, I'm torn between marching up and ambushing him for a kiss that would probably warm me through the next year, and crossing the street just to avoid him. My heart bangs in my ears. I'm suddenly terribly aware of the way my pale blonde hair has slipped loose in wisps from my messy braid, of my cheap lipstick and wind-flushed cheeks. It's the chance of a lifetime, but weird proliferation of mistletoe or not, I just can't face him. I take the third option, walking toward him in the crowd, stepping around him politely, and pretending I don't recognize him, even though my whole body feels like it's vibrating with rushes of adrenaline. I'm almost past him when I feel Cindy's weight shift. I turn around, just in time to see her lean over and lay a big kiss on James Norris's cheek.
Chapter 2. James.
I didn't intend to go down the hill to town today. It's ridiculous, really, how I ended up wading through Phoenicia's last-minute shopping crowd while everyone else up at Mom's house had all their presents tucked under the tree already. It's my own fault, though. I managed to leave the Tiffany lamp I bought for my mother's collection sitting on my penthouse couch as I left to drive upstate. My distraction was understandable. My mother had just informed me that Andrea, my ex, would be staying with us for Christmas. The smartest thing that surgically enhanced little gold digger ever did was ingratiate herself with Mom. I've been looking forward to getting away from my New York City problems for a few weeks. It irritates me to discover that one of the worst of them has followed me home for the holidays. Mother has never forgiven me for breaking up with Andrea, and has tried to get me and Andrea back together more than once. She doesn't understand that Andrea is a high-maintenance gold digger who whines and nags to get her way, and refuses to even contemplate having kids. Even if Andrea wasn't a jerk, she's not the one for me, and both she and my mother refuse to see that. In a way, the errand is a welcome vacation from the tension up the hill. Andrea, demanding that the heat be turned up to 80, has spent the whole day since I showed up slinking around in a gold lame mini dress and matching pumps, with her red hair piled artfully and hard gray eyes ringed with kohl. Clouds of musky perfume follow her around. Like her artfully revealing taste in clothes, it once attracted me, but now it makes me a little sick. I can't breathe until I go out. Andrea refuses to go out in the cold with me, for which I'm grateful. Andrea is a particular type of high-end escort worker who doesn't like viewing herself that way. But her brand of trophy wife isn't there to love your kids or ease away your stress or do much of anything besides look good on your arm and spend your money. Like an escort. Once I realized what she was truly after, and it took me longer than I like to admit, I tried to free myself of her, but she already had her hooks sunk into my family. Driving helps clear my head. Early winter in New York this year was been short on snow until last week, when we got dumped on for 4 days straight. Now the worst of it is cleaned up enough for people to move around normally, but the whole landscape on either side of the winding mountain road is blanketed in 2 feet of white. I pass by the Whitman's Dutch Revival Mansion, an enormous white structure with soaring gambrel roofs, a profusion of columns, and trim in scarlet and green. Even during the day, those two have enough lights and decorations that their sprawling front lawn looks like a fairyland. The local kids love it, so do I. Andrea predictably called it garish, but she has all the Christmas spirit of a coal hopper. Phoenicia has gentrified a little over the years, some of the touristy shops giving way to boutiques and specialty stores. One thing it's always been, though, is big on holidays. But when I pull onto the main street and start looking for parking, it looks just a bit like the Phoenicians have gone overboard. What is with all the mistletoe? I'm still wondering about that. A half an hour later, as I step out of the tobacco shop where I've picked up an inlaid wood desk humidor for Mom's new boyfriend, Mitch. It, and the antique jewelry box I got Mom as a substitute gift, nestle in cocoons of tissue paper inside my shopping bag. I've got nothing to actually do back at Mom's place aside from making small talk and dodging Andrea, so I'm trying to come up with excuses to prolong my shopping trip. My phone goes off as I step outside, and I sigh and reach into my pocket to check it. My mother's number. Of course. Andrea would never call herself, not when she can get my poor gullible mom to summon me home for her. Mom means well. She just desperately wants me settled with a house full of cute grandkids, and Andrea has lied to her about her intentions this whole time. My mom is a very honest woman who has so little experience with lying that she can't tell when she's being led on. So Andrea uses her, and she argues in Andrea's defense in return. I tuck the phone back into my pocket, determined to at least have a few more minutes to myself. I'll tell her I was in the shop buying the humidor. It's the excuse I gave for coming down here anyway. I'm certainly not admitting to my mother that I left the lamp she's been coveting for months on my damned couch. Fortunately, her birthday's in January, so she'll just have to wait to get it then. Phoenicia is lovely as always. I would settle here myself if it wasn't so far from everything I'm doing. As it is, I've thought seriously about weekending over here in a house of my own. But gosh, the crowds are thick today. Not that that's any surprise, given the date. I stand out of the way as best I can, trying to ignore the sharp smell of the mistletoe hanging everywhere. Maybe I can duck into the cafe for some lunch. Or even grab a few more gifts to tuck under the tree. I'm looking up and down the street, weighing my options, when I notice a lovely young mother approaching me. She's small, youthful, and almost delicate-looking, with large, innocent green eyes, wispy blonde hair gleaming like spun gold against her pale cheeks, and lips painted a simple pink. I can't see much of her figure under the gray wool blanket she's got wrapped around herself and her child, but that doesn't matter. I'm already charmed. Especially when I notice the lack of a wedding ring. Behave, I warn myself, though really, the lady's sweet face reminds me of how I've been longing for a little more sweetness in my life. Especially after spending the morning dealing with that bitter, gilded viper that's invaded my mother's home. The cherub she has with her is dark-haired and olive-skinned, her brown eyes full of wonder at the world as she gazes around. The two of them talk for a moment, and then the mother notices me and hesitates. I quickly pretend not to be watching her, busying myself again with my phone. I text my mother with "in shop, call soon," and glance up again, noticing the blonde gazing at me all wide-eyed. I've been recognized. It happens sometimes, even though I've been behind the cameras in various capacities, instead of in front of them, for over 10 years. Most people reach a certain level of stardom and wealth and blow it on a lavish lifestyle, drugs, friends, what have you. I invested it, determined to create a production company where I could create good movies without tripping over corporate politics. Things turned out better than expected. So I've been out of the spotlight for a while, at least on that level. I'm the man behind the curtain now. But not to this one. I see the old dazzle in her eyes for a moment, and then the most charming attack of shyness that I have ever witnessed. For a moment, I wonder if she's going to walk up to me or run away. I'm disappointed when she lowers her gaze and moves to walk around me instead. Then the little cherub in her arms, mischief in her eyes, leans over and lays a smooch right on my cheek. The poor woman freezes, her eyes flying wide open again, and looks up at me in a panic. I let out a laugh, even more charmed than before, and glance up at the bundle of mistletoe hanging directly over my head. "And a Merry Christmas to you too," I inform the little girl, who is grinning hugely. "Oh my God," the woman mumbles in such a mortified tone that I want to pat her shoulder and tell her it's okay. I mind her personal space though, and just maintain my smile and shake my head. It's no trouble. She caught me fair and square. I give the woman a smile, and she starts to relax, seeming a little baffled that this is actually happening. Poor thing. "It's all right, dear, I'm not going to bite. Unless you want me to, of course." There was a time in my career when that starry-eyed look coming from a beautiful young woman would have had me angling to get her into bed. With fans, it's generally fairly easy, and fun for all, at least when I do it. Looking at her and at the soft light in her eyes when she gazes up at me, I'm tempted to do it again. "Yes, I did catch you," the little one insists, and then says firmly, "and that means you owe me and Mommy a cocoa. The kind with the whipped cream and peppermint sticks." She even pokes a finger into my chest. The poor woman. It's all I can do not to laugh as she gives her opportunistic child a look of horror. I'm sorry," she starts, but I just smile and shake my head. "Don't you worry about any of that. I'm charmed, and fortunately for us all, I could really use the distraction." I gaze down at her as she stares up at me, still slightly starry-eyed. Her little girl is beaming with such deep self-satisfaction that I almost start laughing again. This kid really knows what she's doing. "My name's James," I say warmly, never breaking the woman's gaze. I've missed having someone look up at me like I hung the moon, especially after Andrea's hot-cold mix of manipulative sweetness and disdain. There's nothing manipulative about this woman. "What's yours?" "Lorena," she murmurs tentatively, as if she's worried I might be playing a prank on her. "This is Cindy." "Well, pleased to meet you both," I reply before gesturing toward the cafe. "Now let's all get a hot drink, shall we?"
Chapter 3. Lorena.
When we walk in the door of the chrome-countered, checker-floored cafe, I still don't know whether to reprimand Cindy or thank her. Never in my life would I have dreamed that a man like James Norris would end up taking me out for cocoa, but here he is, holding the door for us. I set Cindy down with a sigh now that we're out of the cold, and roll my throbbing shoulder before removing the blanket and draping it over one arm. She waits beside me patiently, looking around at everything but staying quiet. I take her hand again, and we follow the waitress to a table. James pulls out my chair. As I'm sitting down, my mind's eye suddenly conjures Manny sliding into the seat across from me as I scoot in unassisted. He was young and artless but devoted, the kind of romantic who had trouble expressing it. He forgot to pull out chairs. I wince slightly and hide my expression by quickly snatching up a drinks menu. "Clever of them to sell hot drinks in all these different flavors when it's this cold out," James comments as he sits down. He towers over me even when sitting, a giant compared to me and Cindy. I understand that Miss Cindy likes the peppermint cocoa. Do you have a preference? He's leaning toward me, his voice a deep friendly purr, and my heartbeat suddenly pounds in my ears. I can't catch my breath. I can smell his musky cologne and the faint scent of mistletoe still hanging around him. I force out, and then look hurriedly down at the menu. Maybe I should have just kissed him and been done with it. It can't end up more awkward than this. "I've never had most of these," I admit finally in a soft, hesitant voice. "If we ever go for a treat, I get a cup of something very plain and let Cindy revel in her whipped cream-covered delight. I've never even heard of most of these drinks. Well, what appeals? He asks without missing a beat. I look down the list and pick one, a little desperate to avoid trying his patience. Maybe the salted caramel? Salted caramel it is. Clearly you need a treat too, after carrying such a big girl around all by yourself. His eyes dance even more in person than they used to in my magazines. His charisma pulls at me like a magnet. I might have had a crush on him before, but right now, as I bask in the light of his smile, I forget every one of my problems all at once. How does he do that? He orders 2 salted caramel mochas and peppermint hot cocoa, all in their biggest size, and a plate of fruit turnovers to share. Cindy bounces happily at the prospect, and I have to admit my mouth waters a little too. I can bake pastries, but unless I have a lull between my jobs, there's no time to do so. Immediately after the smiling waitress walks away, his phone rings. "Ah, sorry," he says, fishing his phone from his jeans pocket and checking it. He frowns. "It's family. Please give me a moment." He turns partially away, before putting his phone to his ear. "Yes, hi Mom." A pause. His smile starts to look a little forced. "No, I ran into a friend in the tobacco shop, and we're having a hot drink before I drive back up." I try to distract myself by looking around, but I'm dead curious, and find myself listening in regardless. There's a certain amount of tension to the long pause that follows as his mother talks, as if he's listening to a lecture. "Mom, look, I understand that she invited herself to Christmas, but that is between Andrea and you. She and I haven't had a relationship in several months." My ears prick up. "What?" James has been linked for years to the notoriously high-maintenance model actress Andrea Case. He has never been seen in public with anyone else. But apparently, all of that came to an end earlier this year, while I was too wrapped up in hustling to pay my bills to keep tabs. "Mom, please don't let Andrea push you around like that. It's bad enough that she invited herself over for Christmas. This is your home, and I came to visit you. Not her. If she can't handle my leaving for a while, she can always come join me." The corner of his mouth curls knowingly. Andrea doesn't seem the type to brave the snowy streets of Phoenicia, and it seems that he's counting on that. So Andrea is still following him around even though he's told everyone that they are quits. She apparently is conning his mom, and is trying to control him. And he's just trying to come down here for a little break or something, but Andrea won't even allow that. I have a nose for putting stories together, and this one has me intrigued. "Don't let her worry you, Mom, it's fine. I'll be back soon." He hangs up and puts his phone away, giving me an apologetic look. "Sorry. Family holiday, things you know how it is." "Not really," I reply honestly, which gets me a sharply curious look. "It's just me and my little one here. My husband died 2 years ago on deployment." He blinks in surprise, and his gaze sweeps over us again. I brace myself. He's taking in the thin puffer jackets we're wearing, the wool blanket we were using as a shawl, the careful patch in my shoulder bag. I have nothing to be ashamed of. I'm a good person in bad circumstances, and I'm doing the best I can. But what wealthy man ever sees it that way? Aside from Dr. Whitman and his son, of course. But even they're considered eccentric, exceptions that prove the rule. This man, James, whom I've daydreamed about since I was 12, has no reason to sympathize. No reason not to dismiss me as cheap, lazy, and just a step above a beggar, if that. My cheeks burn and my eyes sting alarmingly. My stomach shivers with a mix of humiliation and dread. How will he react? "Ah, well then. That's unfortunate. I thought perhaps that you were here to see relatives." He seems to want to say more for a moment, but then sits back and smiles at the waitress as she brings our drinks. He seems a little relieved by the interruption. I'm more than relieved. Though after a moment, I realize that the look on his face is more concerned than anything. I push the conversation on to what I hope is more comfortable territory. "So, you're visiting family?" I know his mother lives in the area. Every local who follows the movie industry at all knows that. But it seems rude to just assume, as if I know about him from anything besides online gossip articles. Oh yes, he says, perking up. My brothers and I visit my mother every year, and stay for a few weeks. She's a bit like the Whitmans, she goes mad for Christmas and everything to do with it. Her house looks like a parade float right now. That makes me smile. That's adorable. My own house, well, I just can't afford Christmas lights. We have a tiny tree in the front yard that we trim with peanuts and popcorn and let the birds and squirrels eat, only to string up more the next day. But at night, there's nothing in my yard but darkness. I'm sorry if I've brought up something that is uncomfortable for you, he says quietly as he slides our drinks to us. They are each in a huge mug with a small mountain of whipped cream on top. Cindy's has a candy cane stuck into it, which she eagerly pulls out and starts using like a dipping stick. I make sure I have extra napkins handy for her before turning back to him. It's not like that. We haven't been on our own very long, and I'm still getting used to Christmases alone. That part's true. Even back when my parents were too busy drinking to do anything, my Aunt Erin would always take over, making sure that I had something to celebrate, at least for a few days. After she passed away, I had one Christmas with Manny before he shipped out. And now it's been 2 bleak years of Cindy and I fending for ourselves. I just wish I could give her a better life than this. Cindy is as happy and content as I can manage. Fortunately, she's not a demanding kid. But when she gets older, when she's in school, having a poor single mom will weigh against her socially, just as it weighs against me now. I don't really have many friends in town. Clients, sure. Nobody has a problem with me doing their books, cleaning their houses, or looking after their pets. They will share a church pew with me, a bus seat, or the counter at the cafe. They just have a problem with being seen with me in any situation where we might be taken for peers. Even now, I can see the curious looks from locals and shoppers as they see the 3 of us together. The plain, slightly ragged girl, her adorable but inadequately dressed kid, and the billionaire superstar. I know what some of them must be thinking. What's he doing with her? And it makes me feel a little better, like I'm thumbing my nose at their stupid prejudice. Relying on charity upstate, regardless of your run of bad luck, wins you no friends, even when you're a war widow. But James isn't from upstate. And as I notice he's still listening to me, and has made no move to leave, I really start to relax. Well, that's rather sad. And you live in town then? He spoons aside some of his cream to keep it from getting on his nose, as he takes a swallow of his drink. That's divine. Really, Lorena, you should try this. I hesitate. It smells decadent enough to make my mouth water, as does the scent of the pastries. I wanted to save it a moment longer, but I need the distraction from the awkward topic. I scoop up the long spoon and nip up a mix of foam, cream, and caramel drizzle on the end of it. I slide it into my mouth, suddenly aware of how closely he's watching. I lick the spoon clean, the unbelievable mix of rich sweetness and subtle shifts of flavor melting on my tongue. Then I swallow, taking a little gasp of breath in surprise. Wow! His smile widens again. See? I need help, Mommy. Cindy announces, and I turn at once to help her hold the big mug and avoid getting cream all over her face. She laughs as she gets a little gob on her nose. I hear James chuckling warmly beside us. I turn back to him and see him looking at us with something I would never have expected. Not pity or amusement, not mockery or barely hidden disdain, but rather wistfulness. His eyes are sad, with the warm, longing look of a dog staring after his family's car. What is it? I ask him gently, suddenly too arrested by his unspoken sadness to care much whether I make a bad impression. I'm sorry, your family may be small, but there's real warmth there. That's rarer than it should be. He tilts his head slightly. So, what do you do for work? I squash a moment of defensive nervousness and answer the question directly. A bit of everything. I've got a client who I'm a personal attendant for, another one I shop for. I take in packages for a dozen people around town and walk several people's dogs. I house sit in the off-season. Things like that. I wish I could describe my scramble to get enough work in half a dozen fields as something more glamorous, or at least difficult. But the real problem is cramming in enough hours of such work to make ends meet. Rich people don't stay rich by being generous with the help. His eyebrows rise. Oh. Well, if you have a card or something, my mother's been looking for a companion. She's in good health, but she doesn't drive, and she spends too much time up on that mountain eating out of cans. My heart jumps. I don't care that it's not the kind of relationship I wish I could have with the man. It's the possibility of a solid job with a client whose refreshingly non-classist son seems to like me. Of course. Just give me a moment. I'm fishing for a card in the bottom of my bag, wishing I had slipped more into my wallet, when Cindy drops her spoon. Need more help, Mommy? Just a minute, hun, I say distractedly as I dig. Of all the times I've carried these cards around and not needed one, now I need one and can't find it. Here, let me help. James quickly moves to offer his own spoon, and Cindy takes it and happily keeps eating the cream off the top of her cocoa. Thank you, I say as I finally find one of my simple business cards and hand it over to him. He accepts it, and I settle back to take a swallow of my own drink. I try to savor it. It's not just a drink, it's a dessert. This and the turnovers are probably the only real treats I'll get this holiday. Soon though, if this client comes through, I'll be able to afford treats now and again once more. So what kind of help would your mother need? It's an easy topic to jump into. Besides driving into town and occasionally going to doctor's appointments, she spends late winter in Florida and will need a sitter for her house and cats. It's not difficult work, she already has a maid. And she loves kids, so you could probably bring the little princess along. He winks at Cindy, who looks back at him solemnly. I fight down a laugh at my daughter's deepening frown. Uh-oh. Now you've done it. Cindy folds her arms. I'm not a princess. I'm a vampire. Oh, I'm terribly sorry, my mistake. James puts a hand on his broad chest and I'm all blushes and stifled giggles again, watching. He gives her a confused look. But if that's so, how can you drink cocoa? Cocoa's yummy. Dracula doesn't drink wine 'cause he wanted cocoa. She carefully lifts the mug in both hands and takes a wobbly swallow, only spilling a little. I swoop in with a napkin before the droplets can run down her chin. James is very good with her, I think. At least from what I've seen so far. He also seems very attentive to my moods and needs, which is rare, especially in a stranger. Is he putting on an act to impress me for some reason? Or is he sincere, and just better at showing it than many? I realize that not even Manny was this attentive. Manny, who left a hole in my heart the exact shape of his memory, was a soldier, not a gentleman. Quiet, stoic, who prayed more often than he drank, was shy in bed and yet loving, and spent every minute of his life with me that his military commission allowed. I loved him. I miss him. But he never had a tenth of the charm of the man across the table from me. It's been 2 years and change since I've let a man touch me, since I've even wanted a man to touch me. It's only ever been Manny. Movie star crushes are just a way of letting off steam. Until they're in front of you, flesh and blood, friendly and charming as hell, and the possibility of actually going to bed with them becomes a faint blip on the horizon. Why else would he be so friendly? Is he just excited, or lonely for someone who won't treat him like this Andrea woman seems to? The idea of his being lonely is a slippery slope by itself. It makes my heart open a crack, and with that comes a surge of guilt, because the man I'm feeling that bit of tenderness toward is not my husband. To this day, I'll never know what secret assignment Manny was on that left him and half his squad dead, with mourning families trapped in the same red tape nightmare as I. 4 of us wives have no bodies to bury, no explanations of what happened. Nothing to show for our loved ones but the government sending empty letters with official words instead of any consideration, financial or otherwise. How can these men's service not be acknowledged just because the specifics of their mission have to be kept secret? No one has ever had an answer for us. We've been struggling with the help of volunteer attorneys for over 18 months to get them. But the Veterans Administration has not budged. The other widows and I still keep in touch. We have an email chain that we share legal information and news on, and chat together. Awkward pen pals scattered across the state, reaching out to each other now and again when the pressure gets to be too much and no one else can understand. It is like having 4 sisters in blood. I think I could do all of that for her easily. How many hours a day would she need me? I am praying that his mother will need me a lot. Almost everything else I do can be shuffled around or done on the way to completing other errands. But a solid job where I can bring my daughter. Where do I sign up? I'll talk to my mother and call you with details, he says brightly as he enters my number into his cell phone. It won't be more than a day or 2. Thank you, I murmur, still shocked at the sudden opportunity. Oh, don't thank me. I haven't actually had an uninterrupted chat with someone so pleasant since I got here. He winks. So perhaps I have a few ulterior motives in recommending you. Oh, I murmur, blinking, my heart pounding again. Cindy takes one look at my blushing face and starts giggling.
Chapter 4. James.
It amazes me how much better I feel after just that short interaction with lovely, good-hearted Lorena and her daughter. I very rarely feel a spark this strong with anyone, and with a tiny bit of a starstruck crush shining in her eyes, Lorena's almost irresistible. In other circumstances, I would have canceled everything and suggested that she and I spend a few days exploring this attraction. I will have to be patient though. Single mom, desperate circumstances, and me with an unwanted ex hanging around, it's not a great situation to be in to try to get acquainted. And Lorena appears to be the shy type, which is charming, but also means it's best to go slowly with her. I hope Mom likes the idea of hiring her. I want to help Lorena without hurting her pride. I caught sight of those 2 thin jackets and inadequate boots. They were using a military blanket as a shawl to share. I could fix many of those problems just with the contents of my wallet, but I want to be able to do it in a way that's lasting, in a way that will help her help herself. Gentle-hearted single moms still have their pride. Besides, it will be an excuse to have her around. And from the lightness I feel even as I walk up the front steps of Mom's towering blue Victorian, having her around will be a very good thing for me as well as her. I'm humming to myself as I unlock the garland-draped front door and step inside. Oh, what did you get? My mother greets me at the door, all smiles, and I have to gently keep her from poking into my shopping bags. She's a tiny, chubby woman whose face has that sweet Italian apple doll look to it, her eyes magnified by big round glasses. Come on, let me take a peek. No, come on now, I got some last-minute stocking stuffers for all of you, and I don't want to ruin the surprise. I give her a kiss on the top of the head as I bundle past into the hallway. Oh, all right. I just wanted to see what you got, Mitch. She trails after me as I make my way to the first-floor bedroom I'm staying in for the week. All right, let's go in my room and I'll show you. I need to get there anyway. The warm air stings my chilled skin comfortingly, but I know I'll need to change out of my sweater in a few minutes. Andreas Diva insistence on hothouse temperatures will cook me alive otherwise. I step up to the door and push it open, and see Andrea waiting for me on my bed. In gold lingerie, the mini dress draped over my bedside chair, the gleaming silk teddy clinging to her robust curves. My idiot body reacts instinctively to the display. Right in front of my mother. There's a long, awkward pause as we stare at each other. Her seductive smile melts as I watch, as if it's suddenly dawning on her that it's the middle of the afternoon in a busy household, and I might not be coming in alone. My poor mom, meanwhile, gapes next to me like she's just walked in on the 2 of us having intercourse. I think you're in the wrong room, I say conversationally. Andrea blinks at me and then sputters, "What are you doing?" as if it isn't somehow obvious. Well, I'm coming in with my mom to wrap the gifts I just bought. What are you doing? Gosh, this scheming jerk. Not only does she ignore my comfort level and try to use me, but she does the exact same thing to my poor mother. I have to put a stop to this. Oh dear. Mom flaps her hands slightly, and I turn to her at once, ushering her out of the room. It's all right. She's clearly drunk, so we'll just leave her alone to pull herself together. We'll use the breakfast nook, I insist softly, and she nods, blushing to the roots of her white hair. I shoot Andrea a glare over my shoulder. Get out of my room. I'm keeping this door locked from now on. Andrea's jaw drops and then she glares. She starts saying something snippy, but I ignore her and get Mom down the stairs into the kitchen and over to a seat in the big, octagonal breakfast nook. She's just trying to repair your relationship, my mother says weakly. But it's clear that this time, Andrea has made her uncomfortable too. Were I nastier, I would probably say something about how she brought this on herself. As it is, I'm hoping this is the shock Mom needs to stop trusting my meddling ex. Mom, I say quietly as I set the bags on the table and sit down across from her, I know that you like Andrea and that you consider her a friend. But she's also not the person that you think she is. I'm sorry. I reach over and squeeze her chubby little hand, and wonder when she got so small and delicate. We don't have a relationship anymore, because we want two entirely different things out of a relationship. Also, she's a horrifying jerk, and if I ever raised my hand to a woman, it would be to toss her out of this house by the scruff like a bad dog. She shakes her head. She really wants to be with you, Jamie, she means it. She does want to be with me. That much is true. And it's also true that we were good together for a little while. But we're just not compatible, and I don't want to be with her. She doesn't love me, she doesn't want kids, and she uses people. Me, you, anyone she can get her hands on. I look at her sincerely, and she sighs and looks down. If she doesn't love you, she murmurs, if she just wants your money like you keep saying, then why would she try so hard to have you? Because she doesn't know when to give up, Mom. She hates losing, she hates being told no, and she hates being kept from having things she wants. And I hate having to have this conversation. I'm so sorry, Mom. She's starting to look upset, so I reach into one of the bags and pull out the humidor, some tape, and a package of wrapping paper. Let's take a break from dwelling on this mess. We'll sort out what to do when emotions aren't so high. Look here. I unwrap the humidor, which is cedar inlaid with cocobolo and ebony. This is what I got Mitch. Do you think he'll like it? Her face lights up, and I can see the relief in her eyes that I don't plan to let these problems with Andrea ruin our Christmas. Oh, that's lovely. You know, I don't think he has a humidor. Well, I know he likes cigars, and they're no fun when they dry out and die. I start rapping as we talk. This is how Mom has been ever since my father died. The shock of losing her best friend of 50 years took something away from her besides just her spouse. She has a certain fragility now that she never had before. Too much conflict or stress and she wilts, sometimes taking to bed like a Victorian lady with weak nerves. I've learned to understand her limits and work with them. Andrea, on the other hand, doesn't give a damn. She'll use and hurt my mother just like she tried to do to me, and blame both of us if she doesn't get exactly what she wants, exactly when she wants it. And that right there is part of why she will never be right for me, ever. We're talking as I wrap everything from my bags that isn't meant for Mom. I keep the jewelry box and the Tiffany earrings I bought to put in it hidden. My middle brother Aaron has a carsick 4-year-old, and will be a little late, she tells me. Mitch has decided last minute that he wants to do a turducken for Christmas dinner. I laugh at the whole idea, and promise Mom that I'll help him. I notice pretty soon after I get Mom calmed down that Andrea is hovering at the kitchen door, arms folded, staring at me. She's out of my mother's line of sight, which I'm grateful for, because she's making things more awkward by the minute. I keep talking about cheerful, mundane things, ignoring her. Anyway, while I was in town, my friend gave me a reference to someone who works as a companion and errand runner. You said you were looking to hire an assistant. I cross my fingers mentally, watching from the corner of my eye as Andrea frowns and unfolds her arms, a line appearing between her brows. That's right, you're not worth fretting over for more than 5 minutes at a time. We have lives to get on with. My mother bobs her head as she gets up to put the teapot on. "Oh yes," she says cheerfully. "I hope it's a young woman. I'd feel strange having another man in the house." She's a young single mother who has been working up here for a few years now. She needs the work, and I know you like kids, so when I found out about her, I got her contact information. I offer her the card that Lorena gave me. I already have her number in my phone in case it gets lost. That sounds promising. Do you know what she's like? As a person, I mean. She bustles around filling a tea ball with chamomile flowers as Andrea slowly draws back out of the doorway, apparently satisfied that we're not plotting to boot her out in the snow. Yet. She's very kind, and her little girl is almost 3 and an absolute sweetheart. She's a war widow. I know that will get to my mother. Maybe it's manipulative of me, but if it ends up with her getting some help and Lorena getting a job, I'll live with that mild guilt. Oh well then, certainly. Let's give her a call tomorrow, once I've slept on the idea. I'm sure she won't mind a Christmas Eve call if she's hurting for work. She brings out the honey pot and turns her back to keep puttering, as I surreptitiously start wrapping her gifts behind the screen of the bags. Just so. I hope it's a good fit. For more reasons than one. Andrea ambushes me after dinner as I'm trying to clear my head over a brandy in Dad's old library. This time she has the sense not to barge into the room, but she doesn't knock before pushing the door open either. I ignore her for a moment, staring into the small fire I've gotten going in the grate as I think wistfully of Lorena's shy smile. If only she were here, and not this shrew in model's clothing. "You're being incredibly rude today," she growls from the doorway. I take a swallow from my brandy and look up. "You have lied to and used my mother to barge in on our holiday celebration in an attempt to regain access to my wallet, you gilded vulture. You also just embarrassed the hell out of my mother and me with that cheap ladies' mag-style seduction attempt. I don't owe you politeness. In fact, I wish you'd go back to New York City and go back with your boy toys." Our eyes lock. I can see the rage in hers and know that I've stepped over a line, but I just don't give a damn anymore. I'm tired of her bullshit, her thoughtless selfishness, and her manipulative whining. "I can't believe that you think that you can talk to me this way," she says breathlessly. All you want is a rich husband, and you're not exactly being subtle about that. I am not what you are looking for. I'm not interested in a trophy wife. There are plenty of men who are, and some are more successful than I. I'm keeping as calm as I can, and for a moment she actually seems to be considering this idea. I press on, gentling my tone, trying one last time for reason. "Look, in all honesty, you really shouldn't waste your time and attention on me. I'm sure a good number of wealthy men would be happy to have you, and would never listen to you long enough to realize what a shrew you are. Go find some dumb, shallow, hot young thing and leave me be." I take another swallow of my brandy. My attempt at diplomacy, when what I really want to do is take her to pieces verbally, wears on me. Yes, I would practically kill to have Lorena here in her place. I barely know the girl, and I already know that. Unfortunately, Andrea's brief moment of clarity passes, and she falls back into her perpetual role of seducer, lips curving in a sly smile. "It's you I want," she purrs, slinking over, and I roll my eyes so hard that they ache. This time not even my body is interested, even when she stands over me to give me a face full of her cleavage. And I'm used to getting what I want. Instead of seeing Andrea, I see Lorena's smile in my mind, her innocence, her courage in the face of exhausting effort and rough odds. We only spent an hour together talking, but it was enough time for me to know that she is far more my type than Andrea. "Not this time," I rasp, breathing through my mouth so Andrea's perfume won't overwhelm me. "Ah." She runs a ruby-tipped finger over my shoulder through my turtleneck, and I pull away. "Now don't be difficult. You don't know what's good for you." "Don't patronize me," I growl, but she just smiles lazily. I down the rest of my drink and get up, moving away from her. She follows. This is reaching the point of stalking Andrea. "Stalking?" She stops dead, laughing incredulously. Do I make you feel threatened or something? Poor baby. Back when her opinion meant something to me, that would have stung like hell. But the little twinge I feel now is easy to push past. Threatened. You are ruining my holiday with my family because I won't get back together with you. I don't know how much clearer I can be that I am not interested in anything with you. I'm starting to think I'll need a restraining order to keep you at bay. I hate myself a little for being so nasty back, but it does the trick. She backs off, eyes wide with shock. She never expects much resistance from anyone, which makes her obsession with my stubborn butt that much more baffling. She simply doesn't seem to be smart enough to understand that she's never going to win this one. She can't get it through her head that making a mess of things for me won't attract me back to her side. What did I see in her? She lifts her chin, lips wobbly and eyes bright, and then says in a snotty voice, "What you don't understand is that I'm your best option. I have the connections. I can help you build your fortune, or I can ruin you." "No, you can't," I reply tiredly. "I'm a billionaire producer with influential friends in multiple industries across the world." She's a washed-up model who lost her shot at supermodel stardom because she was too difficult for anyone to work with. These days she can only manipulate people who are too trusting, like my mother. But every rich man in Hollywood seasoned enough to know the type, or connected enough to know her story, knows to avoid Andrea. She can't use her body to drive her point home as well as she once did. I was at a low point, lonely and distracted by tireless work, when she attached herself to me. Now she keeps clinging on, an angry parasite fighting to reattach. Andrea, please. Stop embarrassing everyone, stop lying to my mother, and go home. She shakes her head as she withdraws from the room. This isn't over. Yes, it very much is. I look down at my glass and drain the rest of the contents, then pour myself 2 fingers more. It's going to be a long night.
Chapter 5. Lorena.
Cindy's sugar high from her afternoon feast of cocoa and apple turnovers lasts for a solid 4 hours. I end up chasing her around our snowy yard, building a snow dragon, and making snow angels until we're both exhausted and starved. Homemade crockpot chicken soup stretched with vegetables is a little plain after such a gorgeous snack, but neither of us mind. She devours 2 bowls and watches 3 hours of Christmas specials before she finally runs out of steam. I eat a bowl of it, clean up from dinner, and get a little work done. I rewrite one of my clients' budgets, mend one of Cindy's dresses, and clean up the kitchen. I sit with her now and again as she watches TV, and we cuddle on the couch under our one good blanket as I stare at the screen but see James's smile and hear his voice. I'm stuck on the man, and it would feel nice if I didn't feel vaguely guilty about it. When Cindy drowses off for good, I carry her to bed and go back to work. My daughter is sound asleep, and the house is locked up carefully by the time I settle in for a bit of me time with my stack of library books. I'm catching up on Dean Koontz as fast as interlibrary loans can get the books to me. They're like popcorn, a little bland and repetitive, but you really can't have just one. My room is getting chilly. To save fuel, I turn the heat down to 60 at night and give Cindy the space heater, relying on flannel and down to keep myself warm in my aunt's high, ridiculously bouncy, iron-framed bed. Right now my toes are toasty, but the end of my nose feels like I've got my head inside my fridge. The big, creaky house feels a little spooky at night. We've sealed the insides of all the windows with plastic to keep the heat in, and the drafts pull at them futilely, making tiny crackling noises and pushing at the curtains like ghosts. Downstairs, all the lights are off, with just the hall light and my bedside light cutting the gloom. It's the darkest time of the year. Ironically, Cindy's not afraid of the dark at all, but I am. The dark, the cold, the emptiness. Winter's a bad time for me. I nearly levitate off the bed when my phone rings. I answer at once, worried that the sound will wake Cindy. She's a deep sleeper, but still. Hello. Miss Lorena. I'm sorry to bother you at this late hour, but I have an odd favor to ask. It takes me a few moments before I realize that it's James on the other end. Is this a bad time? I add, oh gosh, wait, what's going on? I feel a little disoriented and have to check the lettering in my book to make certain I'm not dreaming. No, it's fine. I was just doing some reading. What's the favor? Well, it's abrupt, but I was just wondering if you'd like to come out and have a drink with me. His voice is strained, with that strange note I recognize from when he spoke about the warmth in my small family. There's that sadness behind it again, and I can't resist it, any more than I can resist the idea of seeing him again. I can't leave my daughter. I hesitate. I normally wouldn't let a man I don't know well into my home with my sleeping daughter, in the middle of the night. But I don't have much here, but if you want to come over. A pause. Sure. What's the address? I tell him and we hang up, and then the real work starts, trying to get ready to welcome a billionaire into my humble home. I draw the line at getting dressed again. It's too cold, I'm too tired, and the purple fuzzy robe is actually the newest piece of clothing I own. But I do hustle around the living room, picking up toys and books, grabbing a stack of papers off the coffee tables, and straightening the blue blankets covering both of our couches. I kick the heat back up to 70 for now, and hear the boiler rumble to life in the basement. The heat registers tick as they come on, and I sigh with relief as the first wave of warm air wafts through the living room. I hear his soft knock at the front door, a few minutes later. It started snowing again, I notice, as he comes in trailed by a blast of cold air. He brushes flakes off the shoulders of his forest green parka and then starts taking it off, smiling down at me tiredly. Thanks for having me. I really needed saner company than I'm dealing with back home. I'll make us some tea. I point him at the tiny coat closet and turn to go put my battered red enamel kettle on. It came with the house, just like the furniture, the linens, and all the cabinets and drawers full of my aunt's knickknacks that I'm still going through. I'm just filling the pot and lighting the aging burner with a match when he pokes his head in. Hi, I greet him calmly, though it's a little alarming that he suddenly seems almost desperate for my company. Peppermint, all right? That's fine. He walks over to one of the mismatched padded chairs I set around our breakfast nook table, the old wood creaking under him. Seriously, thanks for having me. What happened? If you feel like talking about it, I mean. I speak carefully, not sure what I'm inviting him to unload. He sighs. The short version is that my ex has spent the entire evening driving me crazy, embarrassing my mother, and making one brother glad that he's married, and the other glad that he's gay. He snorts. Plus, my sister-in-law hates her as much as I do, but blames me for Andrea being around. I wince. I don't normally get into strangers' problems since I can barely carry my own, but it doesn't mean I don't care. If anything, I usually care too much. So you called me so late because this is the first chance you had to slip out? He shakes his head. I was trying to just get through the evening. But she decided to try to pick the lock on my bedroom door, so she could slip into my bed and seduce me. That's crazy. She was actually out there with a hairpin or something? Who is this woman? Credit card. She kept at it for 20 minutes, and I just gave up trying to sleep and left. His expression softens then, those gorgeous eyes gazing into mine hypnotically. I'm sorry I couldn't get away sooner, honestly. Somehow I think you'd have been better company this evening. A sound comes out of my mouth that's something between a scoff and a laugh, my cheeks prickling with heat. Oh boy. I spent my afternoon and evening chasing my kid around between work errands. She was flying on sugar. I think she left footprints on the ceiling in places. He laughs, the tension slowly clearing from his face. See? Much better company. I can already tell. That surprises me. Most men I have met, except for Manny and his dad, are indifferent at best when it comes to sugar-crazy 2-year-olds. But liking kids and having patience with them is also a good sign, I catch myself thinking. Wait. A good sign of what? This guy doesn't have any interest in me, besides being friendly and getting his mom some good help. There's no way he's interested. Except here he is in the middle of the night waiting patiently while I scrape the bottom of my box of peppermint tea, telling me that he's here because he needs the company of someone who is nothing like his apparently shrewish ex. How can I ignore that? And if he is interested, how can I resist? Manny. The surge of guilt nearly makes me spill the tea. Were he alive, I would never cheat. But it's been 2 years. I'm lonely. And apparently, so is James. My hands shake a little as the idea of moving on rolls into my head for the first time since Manny's death. It's this girlish crush. It's making me stupid. He hasn't actually said anything about being interested in me physically or romantically, so I shouldn't assume. But what if he is interested? My toes curl inside my slippers, and I clumsily manage to finish putting the tea together. I can feel his eyes on me the whole time. I glance back through the archway into the living room and see that he's moved, with him now sitting on my shabby couch with his legs crossed, eyes focused on me thoughtfully. What does he want? Did you want to tell me what happened? I ask as I bring him his mug of tea. Our fingers brush as he takes it, and it's all I can do not to drop it in his lap. Oh boy. I mean, I'd probably make a crappy bartender, but you don't usually see people going out in a snowstorm to hang out with a near stranger and avoid their family. Not my family. Just my ex. He sighs. Andrea might be the perfect arm candy for the paparazzi, but she's just not my type, and she doesn't get that. He watches as I sit on the couch across from him. And worse, she's decided to manipulate my mother into helping her get access to me. My mother just wants to see me settled, and Andrea knows just how to take advantage of that. That is the whole reason she was able to butt in on our Christmas. That sounds horrible. It does, though I'm a little surprised that he doesn't just tell Andrea to step off and leave his family alone. Maybe her manipulation of his mom prevents that. If she needs an assistant, she might not have the energy to devote to fending off that kind of family drama. I don't get why she still thinks that she has a shot, though.
Most men in my position don't marry for love.
We find someone beautiful and basically use her for connections, and to make us look good. In exchange, they get access to our fortunes. She expected the same from me, and she doesn't understand that I'm not into it. He gives me a small, tight smile and then takes a sip of tea. This isn't bad. What brand? I grew it. Making the backyard into a working vegetable and herb garden took me 2 years, thanks to my lack of time. The things that have really flourished so far besides the native chicory are the mint plants. Peppermint for the stomach. Spearmint and chocolate mint for flavoring. Catnip for nerves, and because Cindy gets so excited when there's a kitty in the yard. If Manny's money finally comes through for us, I'm getting her a pair of kittens. Until then, her snow bunny is wrapped in the Sunday comics and waiting by the hearth. He blinks in surprise and smiles. It's lovely. Good and strong, no chemicals. So you've got a garden going? My mother wants one but has a bit of a black thumb. I can help her there. I take a swallow of my tea, and then add in a bit of the last of our honey. I move carefully, handling the raw local honey like gold. The jar was a gift, and I don't know when I can replace it. Did she express any interest in having me work for her? A great deal, actually. He takes another generous swallow of the mint tea and smiles thoughtfully. No cat allergies, right? No. I like them and Cindy adores them. The neutral subject seems to be calming him down. He's relaxing, smiling more. Or maybe it's the company. And maybe I shouldn't punish myself just for speculating on that. Can't a girl dream a little? I'd have to get a look at your land to tell what will grow in the yard, and what would need to be grown in frames or pots and brought inside in winter. That's lovely. I'm sure this will work out. He fingers his mug for a moment, a big blue ceramic whale with a tail forming the handle, part of my aunt's eccentric collection. Don't suppose you've ever handled an eviction of an unwanted guest? I let out an awkward laugh. Well, that's the part one can't understand. Does your mother like her so much that she will just let her stay even if she's causing problems? He chuckles and lowers his head, his smile looking a lot more like gritted teeth for a moment. Oh gosh. He looks up at the ceiling, collecting his thoughts. My mother is a very sweet, very nice woman, who, like you, is a fairly recent widow. She had 50 good years in with Dad, but that doesn't make her miss him less. It makes her pretty lonely. I try to get up here every weekend, but Andrea befriended her to help lighten my load back in the day, and I was stupid and supported that. Then things with Andrea went to hell, and I discovered she's been using us all. My mother, though, can't quite grasp that her friend isn't worth trying to repair things with. I realize that I'm sitting there staring at him with my orange floral mug halfway to my mouth, and hastily take a sip before setting the tea aside. I'm so sorry. Maybe if your mother was less lonely, it would hurt her less to kick this fake friend to the curb. I could help. I know all about being that desperately lonely. In the early days of my widowhood, when I was stumbling around without direction or anyone to go to, predators started to seek me out. They were like sharks scenting blood in the water. Some of them infiltrated my online support groups looking for victims to use for attention and cash. They circled around, spewing false sympathy and understanding, telling me they were there if I ever needed to talk. All the while, they were planning to use every single thing I told them as leverage to get what they wanted. Unfortunately for them, I was loyal to both Manny and his child, and when they pushed too much, I got angry. Then they would see something in me that was too strong for them to bother with, and flee. Unfortunately, that type of man has been the only kind of person to show any real interest in talking to me, outside of my 3 fellow widows. I've tried to be understanding about how my friend pool suddenly dried up. Depressed people are depressing to be around. But when I lost Manny, I saw too much of the worst side of people, including people I thought I knew and once counted as friends. How easily so many abandon others in need, or see them as wounded prey. You look very sad suddenly, he says in a low, musing voice instead of answering my question. I can sympathize with your mom. That's all. I understand about being an isolated new widow. It does leave you vulnerable, especially if you trust the wrong people. I gaze at him wistfully. Please don't be the wrong person for me to trust. Please don't be using me or planning some screwed up prank. I'm tired of feeling like we lost the last good man on earth when Manny died. Andrea has a real nose for people in pain. I worry that she might try to exploit you too, if you run into her before I can get her to leave. He actually sounds worried. I can't help but smile. I don't plan to let her ask me for any favors. And I don't know why she'd talk to me. I mean, people like her don't notice people like me. So why do you? I want to ask, but bite back the question because I don't want to offend him. He might genuinely be interested. He might genuinely be trying to be nice. She'll notice you soon enough if she sees that I've noticed you. His mouth works, and I see the disgust in his eyes and realize that he's trying to warn me. I feel a little dubious about his whole situation all of a sudden. How broken up are they if she's still hanging on with both hands? Can she be as crazy as he says, or is he one of those guys who call all their exes crazy gold diggers? We're staring at each other silently now, I realize suddenly, and hastily drain my tea to fill the silence. So your ex just won't leave, and she's using your mother as a ticket to stay around and bother you. Maybe you should get a hotel room. That might alert your mother to the fact that there's more of a problem going on than she has let herself see. He sits back, a little frown on his face as he mulls the idea over. Well, the approach has its merits, but I'm wondering just how effective that would be. It would upset my mother, but would probably cause less strife than whatever Andrea will get up to. And no matter how things turn out, I will end up with some breathing room. That's the spirit. I give him a tiny, forced smile. Yes, well, I have occasional moments of brilliance, even when I'm tired from the road, and Andrea. He rubs his face, takes another big swallow from his mug and sets it aside, looking around. I notice that the place is rather sparse. My cheeks start heating up again, and my gaze drops to the tops of my slippers. Yes? Didn't you want a tree or some decorations? Or a gift for yourself? He's looking at the snow bunny, wrapped in newspaper, a bright one but still a newspaper. He's not getting it. Of course not, he's rich. I let out a sad little laugh and rubbed my temple. It doesn't matter what I want for myself or my little girl for Christmas. We can't get it because there is no money. He blinks for a moment and I nod sadly to myself. Just from the look on his face, I know he's never had to go hungry so that someone else could eat. He's never wondered where the rent is coming from or whether there will be money to pay for heat next week. I didn't realize, he says finally and then shoots me another confused look. Don't you have any friends that could help? I can't help it. I laugh. Around here. Do you have any idea how the standard New York rich conservative treats people who have to depend on charity to survive, even if we work more than full time? I don't have any friends. He blinks in shock. Then, there's no family, no husband, no friends, no Christmas? Not at all. I have to squash a surge of anger. How can he be this dense? The guy really must have lived a very spoiled, privileged life if he's having that much trouble processing the reality of my life. Just the one present for my daughter, and we are lucky to have that. I'm sorry, you mentioned that you work so much and so? He shakes his head. How can you work more than full-time and still be struggling like this? Now I want to cry. But I just keep that fake smile on. Welcome to life outside the 1%. It's not very pretty, and it's not very fair. I'm not lazy. I'm not unskilled. And I probably put in way more work in a week than anyone you have ever met. But this, along with the VA denying me my husband's death benefits, is what I wake up to every day. I stare at him defiantly. I'm suddenly so angry that I don't care if he rejects me. If he does, he's not the man I had a crush on anyway. He's just another Hollywood fake, and the James I've come to have a real crush on, just another role. I prepare myself for that, just as I once prepared myself when the two plain-clothed men from the Department of Defense showed up on my doorstep the day I was told I'd become widow. But what I see on his face instead of disdain is confusion and grief. I'm sorry, he murmurs in such a gentle tone that it makes my heart ache. I've always tried to be sympathetic toward others, but I live in a certain bubble. I know that. I don't have any acquaintance with the kind of hardships that you describe, and I wish that you didn't either. I lick my lips and look down, hearing him move over and sit on the couch beside me. Not near enough to touch, but when his weight settles on the couch with me, it feels as intimate as a caress. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Manny and I worked hard. We were young and responsible. The VA was supposed to take care of us, even if something happened to him. I can't keep the confusion, grief, and anger of the last 2 years out of my voice. Knowing that our men died for our country, just for our country to turn around and forget every promise it made us, it still stings. The honor of soldiers still exists, but the honor of their ultimate leaders seems to be gone. He reaches over and puts his huge hand over mine, and I turn my head to see his blurry form leaning toward me. I'm sorry. Again, I fully admit, I don't understand. Maybe I just wanted to believe that the world was a fairer place than this. But I suppose that I should know better. The self-deprecating irony in his voice disarms me, and I wipe my eyes with my free hand, a little impatient with myself. No, I'm sorry. I shouldn't unload all my problems on you. It's fine. I just unloaded some of my problems on you, after all. He leans back a little, considering me. You know, when I ordered us turnovers in the cafe, I swear that you looked at them like the waitress had brought you a basket of gold. Even Cindy looked more excited than I'm used to seeing. He's puzzled, not condemning. I squash a fresh surge of embarrassment. That's because we haven't had a treat like that in a very long time. I'm not used to people knowing just how badly off I am. I'm not looking for any handouts or anything. I don't want your pity, I mumble. You don't have it, he assures me. I would have to look down on you to pity you, and I don't. I look up at him again, slowly, and see the warmth in his eyes. In fact, he murmurs, moving closer as his hand squeezes mine gently, I would say you're one of the bravest women that I have ever met. The floor seems to tilt under me a little. I swallow, staring at him, unable to believe the tenderness in his gaze. Tears fill my eyes then, and I look away, out the undecorated window at the black street beyond. I know you won't ask me for help. You're not the sort, are you? Not looking for handouts at all, even when you desperately need it. He sounds a little astonished, and I sniffle and give him a wan smile. I've never asked anyone for more than my baby and I need, I say honestly. He's still holding my hand, the warm smoothness of his palm cradling the back of mine almost tenderly, and it sends tingles shooting up my arm. The warmth melts away my grief and my shame, as if it were a layer of ice around my heart. You should be asking for more. You deserve more. He's stroking the back of my hand now. My knees clench together under my nightgown. Is this affection, or is he seducing me? Is there a difference, aside from whether his heart is in it or not? Around here, nobody likes a freeloader, I murmur, and am startled when he laughs. My gosh, you're the Auntie Andrea. Lorena dear, please. I'm asking you, as a favor to me, let me do something for you and Cindy for Christmas. The plea in his eyes startles me into silence, and he goes on. The job opportunity is a happy coincidence. I'm talking about a gift for you, and for your little girl. I stare at him and draw a deep breath. I want to ask him to save us. To take us under his wing, to protect us, and help us out just enough that I can get by until that damn death benefit finally comes through. But he's talking about a Christmas gift, not a long commitment. My brows draw together as I try to let my mind venture out from what we need most desperately territory to what it would be fun to have for the first time in years. It takes me a minute. Coats, I manage finally. Heavy down coats. Something that's actually warm enough for me and for Cindy. Hers in pink. It's her favorite. He blinks in surprise and then offers a faint, wistful smile. That's not much of a gift. Have you ever been out in a New York winter for a long time without a proper coat? I walk dogs as part of my living. Trust me, it's a great gift. But then my tentative smile fades as uncertainty fills me. I don't have anything to give you in return though. Well, that's not entirely true, he replies in a tone so smooth it sends a shiver through me. His eyes hood slightly. Though to be completely honest, what I want for Christmas from you is not something I can expect as a gift from anyone who feels obliged to give it. It's only given by someone who wants to receive it back. He's moved closer to me, and our knees are almost brushing now. I swallow, amazed that this is happening, amazed at myself for wanting it to happen. My hand is on his shoulder, I don't know how it got there. I can feel the warm curve of muscle under my hands, beneath a thin chocolate-colored turtleneck that's nothing like the giant sweater from earlier. It clings and shifts, sliding like silk across my fingers and molding to every contour of his rippling abs. The sight distracts me until I feel his breath on my face and look up to see his mouth inches from mine. My eyes slide closed as I tremble. This is happening. It's really, really happening. When he kisses me, something detonates inside of me, and my fingers dig into his back through his shirt. Our bodies press together as he crouches over me on the couch. His mouth is firm, his touch decisive as he takes me into his arms. My head fills with a warm haze, and I kiss him back a little clumsily, my whole body feeling ready to melt into him. He lets out a contented little grunt and intensifies the kiss, his hands starting to slide over my back. Oh, that's it. Don't stop. Don't stop. We keep kissing each other, and I suddenly don't know where this is going. I'm losing track of how long we've been in each other's arms. My body aches with the need for more, in a way I just haven't felt before. Not even with Manny. Making love with Manny was about tenderness and giving, and very slowly learning each other. Manny never hurt me, but he never learned to satisfy me either. We were too young, too new at making love, too shy, and he didn't know how to act, and neither did I. With one kiss, James has already sent me to another level. My head swims. My heart pounds, and for a long time, all I can feel are the silken caresses of hands and lips on me. The faint buzzing somewhere off in the background is a mere nuisance, like the hum of a fly. But then, before we can move on toward anything further, James reluctantly stops, and I feel him sigh through his nose against my cheek. He breaks the kiss and draws back gently, and I look up at him in hazy-eyed confusion. "Phone," he mutters apologetically.
Only family has this number.
Damn, I think, but I don't speak it aloud. Family needs are family needs, even if I'm an inch from dragging him up to bed. He leaves me shivering and tingling all over as he checks the phone screen, and then answers it. "Mom. What are you doing up so late?" My heart sinks. Even before the concern in his eyes ignites into anger, I know. I might have a lot of baggage of my own, but it's his baggage that's pushing us apart right now. "Look, I went out for a drink because Andrea kept trying to get into my room." He listens and huffs a sigh. "Oh, she did she? Good thing I'm not in town yet. I'll be back soon." I watch him lie to his mother to hide where he really is, and feel a weird mix of guilt and worry. But if his mother's reporting everything back to Andrea because she mistakenly trusts her, then it's at least a little understandable. I still watch and listen, wary of any little warning sign that I might be offering my trust to the wrong man. He hangs up and shoots me that same apologetic look, with a hint of the same frustration I feel. I'm so sorry. The last thing I want to do is kiss and run, but Andrea's out literally searching the streets for my car, and I don't want her finding it parked in front of your place. The last thing you need is her on your back. No, I don't need that at all. Maybe I don't need any of this drama. My body might ache from the sudden withdrawal of his touch, but if the price is harassment, I'm not sure I can take much of it. "Thank you, will you call me?" My voice sounds almost pitifully sad, and the guilt on his face deepens. "You said coats. You'll have them. And a surprise as well. I promise." I blink at him. "What kind of surprise?" He winks. "You'll see." He kisses me a last time before he walks out, leaving me watching him breathlessly through the front window as he walks away. My lips still tingle, and my head's full of confusion now. Should I be happy? Or should I be running in the other direction?
Chapter 6. James.
I'm absolutely ready to strangle Andrea with my bare hands for getting in the way of the sweetest kiss I've ever tasted. So I know I can't go straight home. She'll be there, and if I see her before I cool off, there's going to be a confrontation, and my poor mother will end up in tears. At least Mom knows I'm all right and doing something normal. I often go down to the one late-night bar in Phoenicia for a few pints and maybe a hot brandy when it's cold enough. In good weather, I can just walk down the hill. But this time it's snowing thinly again, and there's a threat of a snowstorm coming through just in time for Christmas. With all the mess going on with Andrea, I know that Mom's anxiety is through the roof, so I guess I shouldn't be surprised that she called, even without Andrea bugging her. I absolutely have to make sure that if Andrea finds me, it's nowhere near Lorena's, so I head out to the bar as quickly as I can. 15 minutes later, I'm sliding onto a stool at the shiplap and carved wood bar of the one late-night watering hole in town. The place smells of wood smoke from the potbelly stove, and the heater is rumbling away as well, keeping things cozy despite it being in the 20s outside. A few men sit at the bar, barely glancing up as I come in. Despite having family here, I'm an out-of-towner and get treated as such by most. I'm not the only out-of-towner in here tonight, though. A couple in their early 30s sits in the corner in high-end down coats like the ones Lorena wants, but in drab colors, the woman in olive green and the man in navy. Her red braid glimmers like copper in the semi-dark. He holds a beer he doesn't drink in one long-fingered hand, and looks back at her with occasional sad puppy eyes when he thinks she isn't looking. Couple troubles. They seem universal sometimes, though they vary in circumstances. I look away politely as the burly, navy-tattooed bartender comes up to take my order. I order my hot brandy, a toddy this time, with honey and lemon. The bartender throws a gob of honey the size of a golf ball in the bottom, and I suddenly remember how carefully Lorena handled her last tiny bit of honey while serving tea. I wish I hadn't been forced from her side tonight. I wanted to show her that despite the brief amount of time we've known each other, that I'm already very interested in her, and in making her life better. I distract myself by looking around more, and am startled when I realize I've overlooked a nearby familiar face, Dr. Whitman's. He's perched 2 stools down from my seat and looks over at me with his small eyes twinkling, a smile hidden somewhere in his beard. "Trouble at home?" he rumbles, his booming voice a perfect fit for his Saint Nick looks. Trouble came to my home. My family's great. I turn to him and offer a hand. "Merry Christmas, Dr. Whitman. How are you and your son?" He lets out a laugh that he cuts off quickly, as if aware that his voice is big, and there are men with alcohol-induced headaches squinting in the shadows of this place. "Well, quite well. It's Jack's favorite time of year, of course. I'm sure he'll be hitting the slopes as soon as his holiday duties are finished." Holiday duties. The Whitmans are more than eccentric, sometimes they can be downright cryptic. "Oh, nothing serious. Decorations, arrangements, meetings with family. All the things you'd probably expect." He smiles broadly and scoops up his small glass of schnapps, savoring a small sip. "My son's flighty, but responsible when it matters." He looks over at the couple in the corner, who appear to be surreptitiously watching us. "Friends of yours?" I ask quietly. He chuckles and shakes his head. "No, nothing like that at all. I seem to have attracted some curiosity seekers again." Huh. I look back at the pair. They certainly interact with each other like a couple. I just thought they were out on a date. "Well, they should be on a date," he grumbles good-naturedly. "There's not enough romance in this world anymore. Even with mistletoe everywhere, some pairs just refuse to smooch. It's a damn shame." I think wistfully of that lingering kiss with Lorena and nod. "I think you're absolutely right." We talk and drink for a little while, and I'm 2 toddies in and starting to relax before Andrea finds us. We've been talking about my indecision over what to get Lorena on such short notice, trying to sort out what I can get her that will really impress her. Dr. Whitman is good at making me laugh, and better at finishing his drinks. He loves his schnapps. I'm smiling in the middle of a joke when the door bangs open and Andrea stalks in, bundled in silver fox fur, scowling like an angry mother who has just caught her misbehaving son. She sweeps her glaring gaze around like a spotlight as she stands in the doorway until the bartender yells, "Close the door." She squeaks in outrage and stumbles inside. I sigh and drop my face into my hand, and Whitman chuckles and pats me on the shoulder with a meaty palm. Then Andrea sees me, and I hear her stiletto heels clack across the floor toward me so loudly that a couple of the drunks grunt in pain. "Where the hell have you been?" "Getting away from you, you crazy shrew." I keep my voice low, but I'm done pretending that I'm all right with her ridiculous behavior. "Why haven't you left yet?" She stares at me, fists on hips, while a few of the others chuckle at her expression. "You should go home," she snaps. "Your mother is worried." I roll my eyes. My mother picked up a phone and talked to me herself. She's fine and she knows that I am fine. And at this point, she also knows more than a little of what you have been up to. I can feel myself being watched, probably by Whitman, while I confront Andrea as calmly as I can. Inside, I'm wrestling down the kind of rage that will make a man drink too much and drive too fast. I have to dial it back. "There's someone else, isn't there?" she demands. I feel my heart skip a beat. It's ridiculous to let her nosiness worry me, but just as with my mother, I feel like I have to protect Lorena from the worst side of Andrea's personality. "I don't see how anything in my life is your business anymore," I reply in a low, hard voice. "And I don't understand why you continue to follow me around, pestering me. I can't even go out and have a drink without your showing up to bother me." I notice her glancing around, as if she's realizing for the first time that she's throwing a hissy fit in public. A few bar patrons have phones out and are recording her. "You should still come home now," she says, much more uncertainly. "Think I'm going to finish my drink first," I tell her coldly. She looks around at everyone watching us, her mouth working, and then looks back at me. "You are being difficult for no reason." "Look, Andrea, It's pretty clear now that either you're hitting the cocaine and tequila an awful lot, or you've lost your damn mind. We broke up over half a year ago. And as of tomorrow, either you leave, or I'll be staying at a hotel instead of my own mother's home, just to get away from you. Her eyes widen. I've just admitted in front of cameras that we're quits. It's something we had both been avoiding, her out of pride, and me because I wanted a break from dating and didn't want every other woman like her beating down my door. I can't believe you, she murmurs, astounded, and I let out a harsh laugh. Oh, I imagine that you can't. That part of your mind doesn't seem to be working right now. Just know that if you kick up a tantrum on your way out tomorrow and upset my mother, I really will get a restraining order against you, and I'll go straight to the press about doing so. Her jaw drops as if I just slapped her. She knows I have her dead to rights. If her diva reputation gets too enormous, she won't even manage to get a job as a trophy wife. She'll be kicked off the rich guy dating market just as she's been kicked off of modeling agencies' client lists. Without another word, she turns on her heel and stalks out, slamming the door hard behind her. Thank God. Sorry guys, I call out and hear a few grumbles and more than a few sympathetic chuckles. I turn to the bartender and order a round for the bar, and the grumbling stops. Dr. Whitman clears his throat, and I turn back to his merry face as he lifts his glass. Nicely done. I imagine she'll try some parting shot or another, but I believe you took the wind from her sails when you mentioned going public. I smirk and reach for my glass. The toddy's already cooling. Well, I'd rather be spending my evening with the young mother I told you about. Of course you would. He drains his schnapps and calls out for his free one. She sounds lovely. And by the way, I think I know how you might make her Christmas just a little bit brighter, since that's of concern to you. You said that you wanted to surprise her. I've thought of the perfect thing, and I may be of help. A weight lifts off of me, and I lift an eyebrow at him. What did you have in mind?
Chapter 7. Lorena.
Mommy, Mommy. Wake up, comes the cry, piercing through muddled dreams of James's kisses. I flail awake, eyes flying open to a room full of pale, snow-reflected sunlight. I manage, and then shake off the cobwebs and look up at the pink-robed sprite bouncing at the side of my bed. She's not scared, she's excited. What's this about, sweetie? Did it snow again? No, not yet. Come see the yard. She grabs me by the hand, and for a moment I fear she's going to try and drag me out of bed. But then she smiles and backs off. Come on. I check my watch. 7:30. The light trickling in my window still has a faint tinge of peach pink to it, dawn light. It's not even Christmas yet, I think as I sit up and rub my eyes. All right, just give me a minute. Whatever it is, she can barely wait long enough for me to put my hair back in a ponytail and throw on my robe and slippers. Now and again, as she waits for me, she runs back down the hall to a window facing the front of the house. Then she runs back to me, beaming because of whatever she's seeing outside. I didn't sleep well. James left me turned on and bothered, and a little ashamed of it. It feels like I'm doing something wrong by wanting someone other than Manny. But my heart seems to have already decided. I want to be back in his arms. I want to feel his kiss again. I shouldn't be letting myself get distracted by this. Whatever has Cindy bouncing off the walls could be completely benign, or she could be misinterpreting something dangerous. Hastily, I walk after her down the hall, tying my robe around me as I go. I look out the window, and do an immediate double take. For a moment, it genuinely looks like I am looking down at someone else's front lawn. The pair of flowering dogwoods that flank the front gate, the little spruce we cover with squirrel food, the old wrought iron fence surrounding the property, the mailbox, the lamp, all of them are covered in garlands of fir branches, holly, mistletoe, and poinsettias. Several strings of solar lights wind through the decorations, still offering faint gold and white gleams. I stare so long that my eyes start hurting, and then reach down and pinch myself through the sleeve of my robe. I'm definitely not dreaming. What in the world? I mumble breathlessly. Once we're both wrapped in coats and have proper shoes on, we go out onto the porch to look around at the unexpected decorations. The trees are trimmed. The squirrels are clustered around a new feeder, already filled, that has been fastened to the tree just across from my kitchen window. Aluminum-framed deer with contours formed from strands of lights bob their heads in the grass like they are grazing. A small generator rumbles away in a corner of the yard, keeping them going. There's a stack of gas cans next to it, under a snow-spattered tarp that has blown aside partway to expose them. Someone has even built a snowman. It is chunky and unrefined, clearly the work of someone who hasn't built one in years. I can see the prints of huge gloved hands where the man who made it struggled with getting the head round and the carrot nose even. Who did this, Mommy? Was it Santa Claus? I know who it is right away. James mentioned a surprise. He's wealthy, he likes me, he kissed me. He could pull this off, especially with a little help. And he actually has some reason to, at least if he's not pulling off an elaborate hoax. No, Santa's too busy at this time of year. But he does have some friends that help him out. I guess we'll have to see who shows up to take credit. I wink at her, and she giggles and wanders out across the yard to look at everything. I haven't had a man try to impress me in years. And this brings quiet tears to my eyes as I watch my daughter toddle around happily in her own little wonderland. It's so beautiful, I murmur. I catch sight of someone watching us from across the street and turn with a smile, expecting it to be James. My smile fades immediately, and I feel my delight in the moment deflate slightly as I see who is standing there. Andrea Case stands beside a cute gold Porsche wrapped in furs, with gold-rimmed sunglasses hiding her eyes. Her arms are folded and her mouth is a line. I'd probably have recognized her from her attitude alone if I didn't already know what she looked like. I know at once that she knows who did this as well, and that her presence here is a declaration of war. She starts walking slowly across the street toward me. She would look more menacing if she wasn't wobbling on stiletto heels on a just-plowed street, but I still don't want Cindy to have to deal with whatever crap is about to come out of her mouth. I call out to my daughter to get her attention. Sweetie, if you want to keep playing in the snow, I need you to go put your scarf on. Cindy has a favorite purple scarf that she got from the church last year, and I know mention of it will tear her away from the surprise. It will also take her a little digging to find. Her face lights up and she nods, turning to amble inside. I help her up the steep front steps, and she wanders over to the coat closet. I close the door behind her, and only then turn to face the woman glaring at me from just outside my gate. May I help you? I say calmly as I walk down the stairs. Who are you? She demands. I just saw James drive away from here not half an hour ago. What interest does he have in you? Answer me. My heart starts pounding. I've endured a lot of scorn from rich city skanks like this one, who come up for weekend vacations with their big egos and nasty opinions. I've learned to keep the pain and humiliation deep in my aching chest, and wear a mask of polite indifference like retail workers use. If you're talking about Mr. Norris, I say in such an even tone that it startles her, I'm being hired as his mother's driver and assistant. She wilts slightly, her aggression melting enough that I can see the confusion behind it. Then why would he do all of this? She waves her hand around. I saw him leave with that overdressed mall Santa he was drinking with. Her hand settles on the gate latch, as if she's about to invite herself in. I fold my arms across my chest as I come to stand firm on the other side of the gate. She's got almost a foot of height on me, and is obviously nasty and possibly violent. But if she thinks she's stepping 1 foot closer to my home and my baby daughter, she's out of her mind. He would do all of this because the man's trying to get me to take on a high-needs client on short notice during the holidays, and he wants to make sure I'm willing to drop everything and help him out. Besides, I have a 2-year-old. Without his help, she wouldn't have much of a Christmas at all. I look her right in the eyes as I say this, and I do not look away. I feel sick inside, but she's not rational and I can't let her take control of this situation. I wish James was here to sort this out. Wait. You're the new assistant he's hiring for his mom? Again, there's more confusion in her voice than relief. But you're just the help. Why be nice to you at all? Clearly, you need the money too much to turn down the job, regardless of the time of year. She runs her hand over the aging iron of the gate and scoffs. It's like a kick in the stomach, but it only fuels my anger and my resolve. Because unlike most of you spoiled children who call yourselves elite, he actually gives a damn about people who aren't doing as well as he is. She just scoffs again, her eyes widening, as if she's astounded that I would be this stupid. What do you even know about him? I can't believe that even a Cinderella wannabe like you would be this stupid. This time the blow doesn't fuel my anger, it smothers it as she talks. The cold starts to trickle in to replace it. Cold, hard reality that I've been trying to ignore since the moment James sat down at a small cafe table with me and Cindy. I'm sorry, but I don't know what you're talking about. Well, of course you don't. He's picked the most naive, desperate woman he could find in this shithole town. My eyes narrow. I think you're the one misreading the situation between myself and Mr. Norris. Inside, it feels like icy fingernails are digging at my heart. All I am expecting out of Mr. Norris and his mother is a steady job. And do you think that your work for his mother is all he's expecting? She snaps back, though with a bit less force. I don't think he picked you because you're particularly qualified. I lift my chin. Actually, I'm a certified nursing assistant with years of experience as an attendant and driver. Was a CNA anyway. I had just gotten my license when Manny died, and the need to care for Cindy has made it impossible for me to commute for a real job. But it is still true, and I brandish it like a weapon as I continue to glare at Andrea. Oh, she mumbles, suddenly looking slightly embarrassed. Then she takes a deep breath before speaking again, with something almost like sympathy in her voice. Well, look. Just keep in mind that he's the kind of man who will toy with the help if she's pretty enough and he's bored. I've known him for a long time, and I know how easy it is for him to break hearts, whether he means it or not. The help. With those words, reality crashes back in on me, and I feel my heart sink into my boots. Of course. Andrea might be a raging skank with ulterior motives, and I'm not falling for this pseudo-caring persona she's trying on me right now, but she does have a point. Sure, James might be genuinely attracted to me, but this whole time I haven't understood why he's been acting so nice to me. I can't help but second-guess James in that moment. Is that all I am? Just some nobody that he can sleep with for fun. I wish I could dismiss it, just to spite this woman who is standing here expecting me to crumble. But I have years of experience with New York classism. I can't expect a Cinderella story. I can't actually expect that James will save me from loneliness and poverty. All I can expect is a good job, and maybe a flattering bit of flirting. His kiss last night confused the reality at hand, and stoked my crush to a fever pitch. But it doesn't mean he loves me. He barely knows me. And that's all right, if he's honest about it. I have to protect myself, whether my physical relationship with James goes any further or not. And this woman's reminder may be brutal, but it's also timely. They are hiring me for my skills, I reply firmly, feeling like I've swallowed poison. That is all that they are going to get. She turns and stalks away, a look of satisfaction on her face. Good. I want to cry as I watch her leave. But instead, I lift my chin, put my smile back on, and walk back up my steps to take my daughter out to play in the yard.
Chapter 8. Lorena.
I get the job. It isn't that much of a surprise, but I have to hide the relief that rushes through me when James's mother hands me my advance. I hold myself stiffly and professionally the whole time, leaving James in apparent confusion as he walks me back to my car. Is something wrong? He asks as we walk down the broad driveway of his mother's 20-room Victorian. I had not wanted to ruin my chances by rudely parking my beater in their driveway. I look around at the decorations in her yard, noting how much they resemble my own, and feel my emotions wrestle inside of me again. This crush is screwing with my ability to be objective. No, I'm happy. I say, still not letting myself draw too near him, nor responding to the little brushes of his hand against mine. This job helps us a lot. Cindy loved the yard decorations and your mom likes me. Also, Andrea is conspicuously gone. Her cute little car is missing from the driveway. She must have come to give me her little talk on her way out of town. A parting shot. It makes me a little suspicious, both of what she said and of Andrea's motives. Yes, I've pretty much come to expect every rich person to be classist and shallow, but at the same time I sat there and watched James struggle to grow beyond that, for my sake, after having barely met me. Would he really make himself vulnerable and show himself to be less than perfect if it was all an act to get me into bed? I don't know. But I'm now glad I haven't been colder to him, even if I'm backing off for my own protection. Okay. You just seem closed off. The confusion in his voice hurts my heart. I give him a sad smile. It's too bad, really, that there can't be more between us than a friendship and maybe some light flirtation. But I have to be careful. It won't just be me who gets hurt if I let some rich guy mess up my life. He doesn't need to know that I want him so badly that I cried in the bathroom before driving over for the interview. Or that I cleaned myself up right after, put my face on, and soldiered on. For my baby's sake, if not for the sake of my pride. It's because I kissed you, isn't it? He ventures as we turn the corner onto the street. It left me confused. I hedge as I walk up to my car, which is so covered after 2 hours that I can't see its dull brown color. I pull out my scraper and brush a thick crush of snow off the windshield. The flakes are still coming, blowing in sheets across the road. Should I apologize? I really don't want to, since it was great. But if it made you uncomfortable. James, I say firmly as I work on my car. I liked it. If I did not, I wouldn't have gone along with it. But I don't know you, and I have to be careful. He seems a little shocked, as if it never occurred to him that a woman who was attracted to him would back off for any reason. But instead of arguing, he says simply, "How do I earn your trust then?" I bite my lip. He seems so sincere. If only he wasn't a brilliant actor. I can't be sure if he's acting now. Just don't lie to me. I'll sort out whether I can trust you as more than a friend if you do that for me. He spreads his hands as he leans against the side of my car. I'm an open book, he says as snowflakes fall into his bronze-colored hair. What do you want to know? Everything, I say breathlessly, since it's the most honest answer I can give. I do want to know everything. I want to know his favorite breakfast and whether he talks in his sleep. I want to know what his weight feels like against me in the dark. But right now, I just want to get to know him well enough to know whether he can be trusted, with me and in Cindy's presence too. He relaxes slightly and flashes that Hollywood smile again. It's the same on my end. I want to know everything about you. I close my eyes, his smile threatening to melt the careful boundary I'm trying to put up. Andrea didn't have my best interests in mind. But it still doesn't mean she wasn't telling the truth. Only time will tell. Let's try tea again then. Tomorrow night, if you're free. With the advance his mother insisted on giving me, I'm going to buy a box of tea and a jar of real honey, and I'll be taking Cindy into town for cocoa, on my own money. After dinner. I still need to bring your gift. He looks hopeful. Too hopeful. I remind myself to be cautious. He sees my face and grows more serious. I'm willing to do what it takes to show you I'm sincere, Lorena. I can't help the warmth in my smile when he says that. We'll see. It doesn't fully dawn on me that Cindy and I are going to be able to have a real dinner tonight until I go through my wallet as I sit in my car. The bundle of 20s is much thicker than I thought. But mixed with the shock and elation is another set of drawbacks, just like my having to be cautious with James. It embarrasses me a little, and makes me just a touch worried that James's mother, Janet, will only disappoint me later. But I try to reassure myself. She's wealthy and lonely and she likes me. And I can already tell that even if James turns out to be flighty, his mother won't be cruel. It's Christmas Eve, and it seems like everyone's in the grocery store, bustling over the things they forgot for tonight's dinner. Cindy sits in the cart seat as I push it around, forcing myself to take my time and focus on ingredients and things that will keep. Are we having pizza for Christmas? Cindy looks a little worried that she'll miss out on cheesy goodness as she watches me bundle a whole frozen chicken into the cart. We'll order pizza tonight, and I'll roast a chicken tomorrow. And stuff it, and have enough for leftovers for a couple of days before I make soup. My mouth waters just at the thought. Yay, pizza early. Cindy is easy to please. And so I realize as I fill my cart am I. Milk, eggs, string cheese, butter, fresh fruit, mushrooms, frozen veggies and meats, canned goods, baking supplies. My spice rack needs replenishing. So does my sugar jar. So does everything. And now I can actually do that. I've learned to shop smart and stretch everything, and it pays off now, as I need only a quarter of the cash I was given to cover the grocery bill. I feel a little giddy at the thought. Nobody who hasn't lined up at church with an empty stomach fully understands the sheer joy of the thought I can afford to buy my own food. My only other splurge besides the raw honey happens when I stop in at a shoe store right before they close. I buy us both warm waterproof boots with new anti-slip soles and as tall as our knees. They don't have pink, so Cindy gets purple. On the way home, she sings in the car to take the place of the broken radio, and I smile and think of James. I still wish he was here with us. I comfort myself knowing that at least we'll have another tentative chance, and that he's made sure that he and his family can have a peaceful Christmas together. Andrea. She knew exactly what she was doing when she reminded me of James and I being from two different worlds. She never once even tried to claim that she was anything but a heartless opportunist. She simply acted like what she was doing was normal for all her kind, and like I was a fool for thinking otherwise. And maybe I am. But it still warms my heart to dream that James is different. I can't stop thinking about it all through my quiet Christmas in with Cindy. On Christmas Day, she and her snow bunny Percy and her new boots go on adventures around the yard while I watch, and sometimes help out. Inside, the chicken is roasting, and an apple pie I made from scratch is cooling on the table. But what I'm really looking forward to is what I've got planned after dinner, my date with James. I know that's dangerous, but my heart doesn't care. We have to go in before the chicken is ready, because the sky has gone the color of steel, and the few flakes drifting down from it are starting to fall thicker. The coming storm leaves me wrestling with my fears, a blackout, loss of heat, the job falling through somehow, James not showing up. My ambivalence only makes things worse. My stomach jumps around all through dinner, until finally even Cindy can tell something's wrong. Does your tummy hurt, Mommy? She asks with worry in her tone as I cut her chicken into small bites for her. No, my heart hurts, I say honestly. Lots of good things are happening, like James getting me a job with his mom. But Mommy's worried that they might not last. That James isn't who he says he is. That he's using me, and doesn't care about me at all. You should just be happy while things are happy, Mommy. She shoves a cube of chicken into her mouth and chews enthusiastically. I like James. Is he bringing us coats? Yes, later tonight, I murmur and hope my daughter's right about him. Cindy has worn herself out in the cold, and as soon as the sugar from the pie wears off, she falls asleep on the couch and I carry her to bed. Once she's changed and settled in, I go back down and sit waiting, pretending to read one of my library books. The wind rises to a whine in the eaves, and I look outside through the slats in my bent and aging blinds at a street now only half visible behind swirling curtains of flakes. Maybe he won't come after all. Maybe it's inconvenient to drive in this mess. Maybe it isn't even safe. 20 minutes and a single page of my novel later, I hear a car door slam outside. My heart leaps and I turn around to peer out at the front walk. A tall figure with a bundle in his arms is coming in the gate, shoulders hunched against the pelting flakes. I run to the door and open it for him before he can knock. He stands there for a moment, surprised, two floppy presents wrapped in bright paper hanging from his arms. Hi, he manages after a moment. You made it, I breathe, my emotions at war inside of me. I let him pass, and he looks around as I shut the door behind him. "I wouldn't miss it," he replies, and flashes a $1,000,000 grin when he catches me blushing.
Chapter 9. Lorena.
Cindy's out for the night. James and I drink my new tea and chat about everything: his mother, Andrea's huffy departure, and about how each of our Christmases went with our families. It's warm and easy, the only awkwardness coming from the deepening longing inside of me as we spend time together. I still want him so badly I can barely think around it. Finally, he asks the question I wish he wouldn't. "Lorena, did Andrea find you and say anything to you? She was trying to discourage my mother from hiring you while she was packing to go." I set my mug down a little too hard in disgust. "Of course," I say finally. "I didn't want to talk about this, but I know it needs to be brought up. You know she's terrible, right?" His eyes widen slightly. "Did she threaten you into backing off?" I actually have to think about that. Well, I didn't feel safe around her. But it's more that she brought up worries that I already had. He rubs his face, setting his own mug down. "I was afraid of that." "What did she say?" "I don't want to go into every ugly detail of it. She told me that you would use me." His face reddens and then pales, and he glares down at his hands before covering his eyes with them. "People planning to use you don't go to these lengths," he says in an almost pleading tone, gazing directly into my eyes once more. "Andrea does," I remind him, and he sighs. "Well, yes, but she's obsessed. Why do you think she couldn't move on without trying to ruin things for me with the woman I'm interested in?" He stares down at his hands again, looking sick and angry. I want to hug him, but I can't. "If I really believed her, James, I wouldn't let you into my house." My low, pointed tone cuts through the tension between us, and he lifts his head to look into my eyes. "I've had a crush on you for almost half my life. But somehow I'm supposed to set that aside and take it slow and protect myself and my little girl from being hurt." "I don't want to hurt either of you," he says softly. He reaches over and brushes a curl of hair off my face. His fingertips leave tingling trails against my skin. I draw a huge breath. "Tell him to go. I want to believe you." He stares at me with something like desperation in his eyes and then draws his hand back. "I should go," he says hoarsely. "If I stay, I'm going to kiss you, and if I do, we may both regret it." I take a deep breath and nod, standing with him to see him to the door. Drawing closer to him only intensifies the heat between us, and I pause, trembling. I don't want him to go. My yearning for his presence feels like a physical need, essential, like my need for air. He won't be interested in anything beyond making love. It's too soon to expect anything else. But there's another part of me, hungry and neglected, that has craved him for years, has craved any kind of touch, and whispers back, "Would that be so bad?" "Let's see what it's like outside," James mutters in a cautious tone. He pulls aside the blue window quilt on one of the hallway windows, and blinks. "What the hell? What is it?" I ask as he brushes past me and goes for the door. I follow him, and when he unlatches it and pulls it open, a blast of wind shakes the house and throws the door wide. Snow swirls into my home in roiling clouds and I stagger back, gasping. James wraps an arm around me to steady me, and forces the door closed against the onslaught with one hard shove. The door bangs shut, and he hastily latches it. Ah, that was stupid of me. In the quiet afterward, I can barely hear us panting, beyond the ringing in my ears. What's going on out there? The storm's turned into a total whiteout. I can't drive in that. He turns his heated gaze back to me, and there's a faint note of desperation in his voice. We stand there craving each other, and I murmur, "You'll have to stay then." The rush of tingles through my body at the thought tells me that I'm in dangerous territory. Having him stay is too tempting. "I'll sleep down here on the couch," he offers breathlessly. We're standing too close together. His arm is still around me. It's probably a good idea. I turn inside of his arm so I'm facing him. I feel a long shudder move through him, and see the way his eyes hood and smolder. I can't afford to make a mistake. What if you're not making one? He whispers against my lips. The wind shakes the house again. I stiffen and then hear a frightened cry from upstairs.
Mommy.
James lets me go at once, and I turn and bound up the stairs, back on mom duty, trying to ignore him walking up behind me. If Cindy is too upset, I'll send him off back downstairs. I walk through her door to the side of her small bed and see her balled up under the blanket, eyes wide as they peek out from behind its edge. What's going on? Cindy whimpers. It's okay, sweetie, I murmur as I go to sit on the edge of her bed. I wrap an arm around her. It's just a bad snowstorm. It can't hurt us if we stay inside. It woke me up, she grumbles, relaxing against me. I stroke her hair and she shivers, flinching at every rush of wind. But I stay calm, and eventually she picks up on that and relaxes. It can't hurt us. It might cause a blackout, and then it will be cold. But we've got lots of blankets, and James will help us get a generator going if we need power. I kiss the top of her head, and her mouth opens in a huge yawn. James is here, she asks sleepily. Yes, he's here right now. He brought our coats. Good, she murmurs. You should make him stay. You smile more when he's here, Mommy. I blink down at her. This kid. I'll think about it. Then I tuck her in, and go back out in the hall to where James is waiting. Is she all right? He asks gently as I emerge, and I nod, shutting the door and then moving closer to him. The door to my bedroom is right down the hall. She'll be fine. She's just never been in a snowstorm this strong. The wind shakes the house again, and the lights flicker, but my daughter doesn't make a sound this time. She trusts me when I say she's safe. Do I trust him when he says that I am safe? Can I afford to? I move up to him and brush my hands down the outsides of his arms. It's reckless, and it could get me hurt. But he's stuck here now, and I suddenly can't avoid the situation. He moves up close to me again, and this time it feels unavoidable when we press together and he lifts me in his arms. Deep down, I struggle with guilt, as I remember my decision to take things slow. But when I feel him trembling against me like he's almost too excited to restrain himself, the burning heat he stokes inside of me crowds out everything else. The wind rises to a roar again outside, covering our small sounds of pleasure as we feast on each other. Finally the kiss breaks, and he leans back, looking down at me with his chest heaving. Are you all right with this? He rasps with the last of his self-control. His heart is pounding against my body. You just asked me a question that I can't answer, I murmur against his lips. If I hide from the answer, I'll be hurting myself anyway. What if I'm not making a mistake? What if not taking the risk is the mistake? His grip tightens on me and he kisses me again, a small feral sound escaping his throat. We kiss each other's lips until they're sore, and when he sets me on my feet, I take his hand and lead him into my darkened bedroom. I don't know what decides it for me. James's promise not to hurt us, the proof of that in his actions, Cindy wanting him to stay too, or the growing desire to spite Andrea. But even as my mixed feelings leave me shivering, I know that whatever reason I want to hang it on, this is where I wanted things to lead. The room is small and a little drafty. I had to make window quilts from old blankets, and even with them and the plastic, I shiver a little as we walk in. The iron bed is a pale shape in the dark. My bottom strikes the high edge of the mattress, and he presses against me, scooting me up onto it with his hands on the small of my back. One of my flats falls off with a thump. I don't even look, I'm too wrapped up in the feel. His hands slide my cardigan off my shoulders and toss it aside onto the bedside chair. Manny was always just as nervous as I was when going to bed. Part of it was that we had never been with anyone when we met, and didn't actually have that much time between deployments to sort out things like intercourse. But James has 2 decades on my late husband, and apparently he's learned a lot from them. He doesn't hesitate. He explores. I tremble under his hands as he slides his fingertips over every part of me, first through my dress and then up under it, caressing my thighs through my stockings. I know he's marking me, and I submit to the unfamiliar feeling that's making me dizzy. I want to feel this good always, and forget everything. The brush of his big, warm hands against my chilled skin makes me cling to him, and I impatiently start sliding my own dress off my shoulders. I help him tug the dress down to my waist and push off the bed so he can get it over my hips and away. The demure slip under it is one of the few nice ones I have, and as he starts caressing me, the wind keeps shaking the house and the scouring whiteness outside sends a hiss through the room. He peels off his turtleneck and tosses it aside. I run my hands, and it occurs to me just how little I know about men. He's definitely in the driver's seat tonight, but I feel like being just a little bold. He lifts me to my feet and loosens the slip across my shoulders, then slides the whole silken sheath off of me, leaving me in stockings and one shoe that I kick off impatiently. That done, he lays me down and just looks at me. "Damn, you're lovely," he purrs, and I stare at him through my lashes because I don't have the nerve to look at him in the eyes. I tremble, amazed at just how turned on I am. With Manny, it was all warm haziness and shy caresses. This is a whole different experience, still tender, but I'm on fire underneath my skin. The pleasure leaves me drugged, thirsty for more, a little desperate. If he stops, I might lose my mind. I don't have the words for what I'm feeling, just whimpers and sighs, sometimes muffled with the back of my hand or the bedding. I've lost control. As he struggles to move steadily and gently, I throw myself against him, against his caressing hand. It's too much bliss, too much need. But I grind against him anyway, as he starts to shout with every breath. I roll over and look at him. His face is blurry in the dark, but I can see his smile as he pulls me close. "Any regrets?" he asks me softly as he nuzzles my forehead. I'm stunned. My whole body is loose and relaxed, satisfied in a way I have never felt before. And here he is, lingering and asking how I'm doing. I was right to take this risk after all. Even if it doesn't last, I will have had these precious days and tonight. "Not one," I reply softly, and he smiles good.
Chapter 10. James.
A year later, neither one of us has any regrets yet. There are a few bumps along the way, of course. Andrea tries and fails to sell a tell-all book about me. My mother ends up with a few trust issues thanks to her, but having Lorena around helps with that a lot. It doesn't take Lorena very long to win over my mother, and she gives us her blessing, but soon after that, Lorena ends up wrestling with a nasty case of morning sickness. By the time the holidays roll around again, Lorena's house is fixed up, and we're splitting our time between there and New York City. My mom is happy that I'm around more. Cindy's charming everyone, especially my mother's cats. Lorena never has to be hungry or afraid again, and I never have to be lonely or wonder who to trust. A faint alarm goes off at 6 on Christmas morning, well before dawn. "Ah," I groan, and Lorena lets out a sigh and rolls over, flailing for her new cell phone to turn off the ringer. "Okay," she murmurs sleepily. "If we want to catch her asleep, this is our last chance." She's gotten a little clumsy with her growing belly. I help her into her robe and slippers and throw on my own, then we make our way downstairs into the kitchen and to the basement door. Cindy is afraid of the basement, and so it's the best place to keep secrets from her. Even if we've only had this secret here for about 6 hours after hiding them at my mom's place for a week. I go down into the basement and come back with a big, padded carrier. Lorena shuts the door behind me, and we both sneak up to Cindy's room. She's been a good kid, especially for a 3-year-old. She's been cheerful and well-behaved through an awful lot. And she's already more responsible than kids I've known that are twice her age. So after a lot of discussion, Lorena and I agreed to trust her with her biggest responsibility yet. Lorena opens the door and we both slip in, closing it silently behind us. Cindy's snuggled up with her snow bunny and the pink seahorse she got for her birthday. We move together to the foot of her bed. We share a quick kiss as we look down at our precious Cindy, and then Lorena reaches over and opens the carrier door. 2 white fluffballs, clumsy with youth, bumble out to explore the bed and its occupant. One of them lets out a faint mew, and Cindy stirs and starts to blink her eyes open. I squeeze Lorena's hand with my free one and feel my engagement ring on her finger, feeling a deeper contentment than I've ever known. Sometimes you have to wait on someone before gaining a real commitment. Sometimes you have to show that you're trustworthy. But it's almost always worth the work and the wait.
The end. Thank you for listening to this audiobook. We hope you have enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. It helps us more than you know.